Let's discuss variables. So variables are quite a big concept in programming, and it is sort of difficult to explain in some ways because so many things in programming depend on each other, and so it's quite difficult to explain variables without touching on any of those other things. I'm going to try my best. I think probably easiest is if we simply code. So a variable is like a container that you can put data inside and you give it a name. Okay, it's as simple as that. And then when Python looks at that variable, it looks at the little container, it checks what's inside, and it uses the value that is inside, and it can use it again and again and again. Now, at first, that seems quite basic, and you can't see why would you ever want to do that. But as soon as you start using them, you suddenly think, like, how could I ever have done any coding without using variables? So easiest is probably if I just do some example. Let's code a square, right? A turtle square. Okay. So turtle dot forward. Let's make it a square with a length of 100, and turtle dot left 90, and that has to happen 4 times. Okay. So now you see that our square has a side of 100. And that number is used 4 times, as is the 90. It's used 4 times, but obviously a square always has an angle of 90. But this distance is something that could vary. We can imagine making a square that has a different side length. So if we are making a more complex picture, let's say, and we want our square to be an exact size, and we're not sure, and we're coding this thing, and 100 looks about right, but not quite, then we want to play with this number. And every time we want to change that, we have to go change it in 4 different places. So that's rather frustrating. Ideally, we'd like to be able to put this number somewhere and then reference it so that we only have to change it in one place and just use it everywhere else. And so that is exactly what variables are for. So you just create a variable by choosing some sort of name. Let's just say dist for distance, and equals 100. So that places the number 100 into a little container called dist. So now you can imagine this little container, and inside it is just 100. Okay. And now if we want to use that value of 100, we just speak about the container's name, dist in this case. And then what Python does is when it executes your code, it comes to this point and it sees that you've used a variable name, and then it sees, does it know of that sort of variable? And by this point it would. And it looks inside and it sees, oh, there's a value of 100. So then it's going to take that value and pop it in here instead. So this is the same as turtle.forward 100 at this stage. Now we can use that variable everywhere. I'm just putting the spaces on the other side to make it easier to read. So then we can use that variable everywhere, and we're still going to have the same square, because every time Python gets to a point where that variable is talked about, it's going to take the value of 100 and put it there instead, because that is what is inside that container. So there you go. Now, if you'd like to change the size of the square to something else, you only have to change it in a single place. So if we want a square that's half as big, we can just do that. And then makes your life a lot easier. This is now 4 different places where we use that distance, and that's just for something as small as a little square. Once your code gets more complex, you end up using variables all over the show, and there's almost no way you would do it without variables. And then if you want to make changes to your code, you have to change it in hundreds of different places. It would drive you insane.